Thank you.
Yeah, just it feels, it's interesting. It's hard for me to name why it feels different for you, but it does. Is that, I mean, obviously every album is different, but do you feel like this is a change in sound for you?
Can I just ask, are we recording now? Or?
Yes, we are recording.
Okay,
yes.
okay. I didn't know if we were just chatting or not. I'm sorry if I messed that up.
No.
Okay, so would you mind asking me that again?
Yeah, well, when I listen to this record, it sounds different, like noticeably different from your others, but it's hard for me to articulate why. And I was curious if that's just, I mean, obviously, especially the first song, but I wondered if that was something that was intentional or obvious to you.
Yeah, I think that it was both intentional and also just sort of the natural course of things. I mean, you know, there was quite a few years in between, I guess. And also it was my second time making a record in the studio, so you sort of, maybe in between the first run and the second run in the studio, you sort of understand the resources you have at your disposal a bit more, and are able to sort of imagine some of the extra color that you can give things. And for whatever reason, I think I just wrote songs that felt like they were a more appropriate canvas for some of these touches, like percussion, which is something I've never done before. So yeah, the natural evolution, I guess.
Yeah, the percussion I loved. But is that you?
The percussion?
Like, at least the writing part of it.
Oh, I mean, yes and no. I would say, you know, it's probably 50-50. I mean, I'm definitely not somebody that writes percussion parts typically. So, you know, we had two percussionists work on the record. The main percussionist on the record is a Brazilian percussionist named Maura Rafosco, who did a lot of the hand percussion and sort of the interesting little bits and bobs, a lot of that atmospheric stuff. The full drum kit on Life Is, we were basically just trying to go for, you know, a pretty familiar sort of like 1960s pop sort of structure. So there was certainly help there. I think you know, on previous records, I've tended to try to do everything by myself, or at least write everything, and this time there was a little bit of a sort of giving direction and seeing what the players could come up with.
And how did you, like, what was that experience like for you in terms of sort of ceding maybe control a little bit?
I mean, I guess it was complicated. You know, on the plus side, you know, there are certainly people that are more capable than me at writing certain things, and if you are trying to achieve a certain sound, it makes sense to call on, you know, very talented people whose skills exceed your own. So in that sense, it was very exciting, sort of like being like a puppet master or something. But then, you know, there is sort of like you are giving up some control. But I think it's mostly positive.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And so the fact that so much time has passed since the last album, does that kind of up the stakes or the pressure when you have this release?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, it works in two ways, I guess. I mean, you take longer, you may have more time to refine things. But at the same time, it's sort of like if you take longer than people anticipate, then, you know, maybe they're expecting something of a certain caliber. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Yeah. And so this time around with the touring, it will be a bigger band than done before.
Yes, previously I've only ever played with one other person accompanying me. And this time, just due to the kind of sonic expansion on the record, we really felt like we needed to have more hands on deck. So yeah, it'll be a 4-piece, including myself.
And are you kind of thinking you want to continue in that direction with records in the future in terms of more musicians?
We'll have to see. I mean, I think that there can be a real danger with people who have sort of originated as solo artists sort of graduating into this full band incarnation. I think sometimes it can result in a watered down sound or sort of like a homogeneous sound if you aren't careful, because maybe some of those more idiosyncratic qualities of the music can get stamped out by everyone needing to sort of unify behind like one beat or one structure. So you have to be very careful. I guess we're trying to sort of think of it more as like a jazz approach or something, where it's sort of the core essence of the music stands, but there are these sort of touches coming in to accent things, and things come in and out. It isn't so traditional, I guess.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you're mindful of that as you're, like, even when you were making this record, you were mindful of, like, it not sounding so generic or
Yeah, I really wanted to avoid that because I think it is sort of a classic misstep. Yeah, I mean, also, I think I've always been kind of a quiet and subtle performer, so I am used to having to sort of make accommodations for that in order to sort of let the songs shine for what they are and not be sort of steamrolled.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I hadn't thought of that. So you moved to LA in 2019?
No, 2013 actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not your first record then, obviously, having lived here. But it seems like maybe this was the most influenced or overtly influenced by LA. Is that fair to say?
I would say that is accurate, yes. Yeah, I mean, my second record came out shortly after I moved to LA. I wrote it right when I moved to LA, so I was still probably running off of the fumes of San Francisco, my previous residence. And yeah, this previous record, and this record, I recorded both of them in New York. I'm not sure exactly why it took this long for the influence to materialize, but it certainly has.
Well, I think LA is one of those. You hear people who come from New York or something. They say give it 3 years for you to, and it is it's an adjustment, especially when you're in a place that it maybe is a little more built around public transportation. I just think it's a very different way of living.
It is. I always say LA is like a 5-year adjustment period. I think it takes a really long time. I don't think it's a city that welcomes you necessarily. I think a lot of people can't tough it out, and I don't blame them. You really have to carve your own path and establish roots in this very dogged way. So yeah, maybe that's why it took so long.
Have you always been into Hollywood history though?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent. I'm certainly not a completist or anything when it comes to that. I mean, there are people that live in LA that are just insane film buffs, and that's a cool thing to be around. But yeah, I mean, I guess sort of coming of age, I read a lot of music books and bios and stuff, and I'd say 90% of that touches on LA in some shape or form. So it's always held a certain level of mystique for me.
Mm-hmm. Is there a certain time or sort of type of music that you're most fascinated with in terms of the history of it?
I mean, it's all interesting, but, I think that I've always gravitated toward the music of the 1960s and 70s.
Yeah. And I did have to ask what your order at Musso and Frank is.
Well, it's been collaborative with my husband. I think we have the order down. It's filet mignon, cream spinach, wedge salad, maybe some mushrooms. Also, if you don't want to do that, I think the spaghetti and meatballs are pretty good. And a martini if you like that kind of thing.
Of course. Have you tried the bread pudding?
I have not.
I always see it on the menu. I always think of, I love bread pudding so much. I need to
I do as well. I've never tried it.
So it's funny you bring up the film buffs. I was curious if you are into them, like, because you into movies, because you strike me as somebody who would be.
I am, but I think that I'm less knowledgeable about film than I am about music, and I feel like maybe some of my interests are like fairly narrow, and I would like to take advantage of more screenings in LA, but I don't know. It's hard to have time for everything.
Totally. And I think when you are around people who are so obsessed with it, it gets like daunting.
It is, yeah, absolutely. You can go off on so many different rabbit holes.
So talk to me a little bit about, I know people have kind of tried to classify you, and you're often associated with folk music, and you kind of pushed back on that. Do you feel like you have kind of been able to clear that sort of pigeonhole at this point in your career?
I mean, I think if you play an acoustic guitar and you're not doing something like radically specific stylistically that would counter a folk association, then it's just sort of something that people turn to, and I have no problem with that. I think, my last record is arguably a folk record, even if there are sort of other influences happening, and it isn't, totally descriptive. I would have to imagine that this new record might hit people a little differently, even if the root of it is still an acoustic guitar. I also think over the last few years, I've sort of shifted away from fingerpicking, which is also something that is very associated with folk music. So I'll be curious what people think.
Is there a reason for you shifting away from that?
I don't think it was fully conscious. I think that I was just trying to write certain sorts of songs, and they were probably better accessed with just a more straight-ahead strumming style.
Interesting. I love fingerpicking. I didn't realize that you had changed it, so that's funny.
Yeah.
But so you didn't do it at all on this record?
I think there's one song with some fingerpicking.
Okay.
Yeah.
But mostly, yeah. So it's funny, I was wondering, like, when you kind of set out to make a full record, do you kind of think, okay, here's like the vibe, like do you kind of storyboard ahead of time, or is it sort of just the songs kind of take shape and then they come together on their own?
It's kind of, I guess you could call it a very loose and abstract storyboarding, but it's not very concrete. It's really just stuff that's floating around in your head. You sort of like catch an idea. You might have like notions about something that you might like to try. But I've found if I try to be too specific in the writing process before anything has really started to gel, it doesn't seem to go well. It's kind of like forcing a shape onto this material that doesn't exist yet. So it's sort of like a divination process. I've watched some interviews with David Lynch where he sort of says a similar thing about how he has sort of followed the creative thread of stories where it sort of like begins as this dreamlike thing, and you're just sort of taking one step at a time in a direction that feels correct, and sort of like trying these things out, and maybe they work, maybe they don't, and it feels like you're trying to piece together something that already exists somewhere else, and you're just trying to remember what it is, sort of.
You know what's trippy? I wrote on here that your music reminds me of David Lynch.
Oh, that's cool.
In the sense that it's, like, it sounds nostalgic, but also is, like, atemporal.
Yeah.
Is that something you've sought to do?
Oh, that's very kind of you. I think, yeah, atemporality and sort of timelessness, or just sort of a multi-dimensional feel, if you can like try to tap into that at all, is very good. I think that, you know, a lot of newer music, I guess, feels to me very much of its time, or it's very difficult to avoid that, I think. It's not even a criticism. I just think it's, you know, you're using certain production tools and things like that. So, you know, with melody and structure and production, even the way that a person sings, if you can get into sort of a more nebulous zone, I think that that's really exciting.
Do you try to avoid listening to modern music for that reason?
I do think that I have a very porous mind when it comes to musical influence. It's kind of like a monkey thing where it's like your brain just picks it up and wants to replicate it. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. So I do try to be selective when I'm writing. And I would say overall I'm not terribly dedicated to surveying, like, you know, all of the new music that comes out, but certainly there are things I'm very excited about.
I was going to ask something kind of related to that. I was curious, I'm almost done, but I was curious if you have like a specific like writing style in terms of like during like times of the day. Do you kind of have a regimen that you follow? Yeah,
I do. It's very regimented, actually. I wake up and do like a little routine, you know, have some coffee, and then I just get started straight away. I usually spend 2 hours writing, which is, you know, singing and playing guitar. It doesn't seem like long, but I find that after 2.5 hours, I can't really give much more, or if I try, I just don't really get any results. So I just try to set aside that time for long stretches.
So the lyrics and the music are kind of written in tandem with each other. It's not like one first and then the other.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it's melody first. It's more of the shape of the song, and I start with the chords, I play guitar, I'm sort of moving around until a vocal starts to sort of materialize. And a lot of the time that'll just be sort of phonetic shapes, sometimes full lyrics, but those kind of get fully colored in later.
And to wrap up, I'm always so fascinated with people who are able to kind of stick to their guns artistically and also make a living. I mean, with music, it's just like, it's rough out there. But yet I meet these people that are, you know, are doing it. Like, do you know what you did?
That's an excellent question. I don't know. I think it's a combination of, you know, being pretty good at what you do and just luck, meeting the right people at the right time. You know, I also think if you make emotional music, it's easier for that to connect with people. Yeah, I feel very lucky. I mean, it's a really awful time to be an artist, and you know, I don't blame anyone for tapping out.
Do you feel like there's certain ways that like you feel comfortable artistically with making money that is like side projects, like either soundtracks or, you know, like are you like kind of a purist in that way?
I haven't done anything like music soundtracks. I would love to do that. I think it's sort of fallen out of fashion a little bit, like traditional song-based soundtrack music. I think it's more sort of like ambient or electronic stuff, which that's just sort of, I understand why that suits film and television and stuff. But yeah, I would be open to exploring other mediums, but I haven't done a ton of that.
Cool. Did you have anything else to add? Do you feel like there's anything we didn't talk about with the album? Okay.
I think it's good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. This was really great.
Thank you. Was that all right?
Oh, it was amazing. You were great.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
I've never. Yeah. No. This was great. It's so funny. The first interview I did with Jessica Winkler's client was Mac DeMarco.
Oh, I watched that one.
Oh, yeah. Right. And it was so funny because he showed up by himself, and we were like, what? This is so weird. And then, like, I swear, at all of Jessica's clients have done that. Like, that's not normal.